Hello.
Okay, so today we will be making a recipe illustration. So just fair warning, we have to extend the class 10-15 minutes. I'll try to finish it in time because already it's a very late session. But keep in mind that there might be a few things that I might show you how to do, and then the rest you might have to complete later, like the banana leaf illustration. We might paint part of it, and then remaining part you can paint afterwards because it's a repetition of the same thing. So, with recipe illustration, there is a certain process that I follow. You first, of course, need the recipe, and depending upon what the ingredients in the recipe are and the different kinds of processes that are required in the recipe, you need to decide how much space you want to dedicate to the illustration and to the text. Some recipes don't require any text at all. For example, if you take a chutney recipe or something, you just take the different ingredients, you put them all together and blend it. So you can just make a blender, draw the ingredients around, and just title it, and that's the end of that. I prefer to illustrate recipes for people with average IQ, which means that don't dumb it down for the sake of the one person who will need every little step being told. The simple example is that in many cases the cooking process or the measurements of the ingredients are based on everyone's preferred taste, so you don't need to really write that down. And if there are recipes where you don't want to write all the measurements of the ingredients, it is a given that you can change those measurements according to what you like. So don't think of writing this recipe for somebody else. Think of writing it for yourself and for people like yourself. I'm not a genius. I'm average intelligence. So I think most people of my average intelligence will figure out what I'm trying to write in the recipe. Because when you give yourself this freedom, you have a lot of flexibility in what you want to write and what you want to omit out of the recipe. So today's recipe, I'm going to show you a bunch of things, but we need to consider what the illustration of this recipe is going to entail. So we can look at finished products, and we can look at the ingredients, which is the prettier group. Sometimes the finished product, like if you take one of these Indian dal type things, finished product is basically just a yellow puddle. But the ingredients can look pretty in that. So you can just mark the ingredients, create maybe a sequence with which you can illustrate the ingredients which go in the recipe, and finally you just say it's done. But in this case now, both the ingredients as well as the finished product are pretty good to look at. I'm going to do a little bit of both, but first we will note down all the elements that go in the recipe. Once we look at that, we will look at the colors that are involved, the shapes, sizes of all the elements, and then work out the different kinds of compositions we want to play with, and then finally select the one that we would like. Now today, fortunately, I have found two illustrations which are a curry rice on banana leaves. But as it was pointed out, the second illustration that I've shared looks like AI because we've got the most science fiction banana leaf that we could find. But it doesn't matter. If in most cases, when you're making your recipe illustration, chances are you will have to make a composite image. You'll take one thing from one place, another thing from another place, mash it all up together based on your composition, and create the final image. So we don't have to wait to find the most perfect illustration reference. We work with what we got, and we figure out the rest. The same thing goes with all the ingredients as well. So, say you've got onions, cloves, garlic, this, that, and the other. Most of these things are there in the kitchen. So, just pull them out, put them on the table, and see how they look and make their illustrations. It's as simple as that. You don't need to even look for other references. The only place where references can or might be necessary is in the final presentation, because we may not really have access to banana leaves every day to present our preparation and then illustrate it. So that part you can rely on reference images. All right, so Kirti, I'm going to read your recipe. I've shared it on the group also. We'll go through that text.
Aditi, that recipe is very much in detail because wrote it just now the way I prepare and I just
That's
put it in the
perfect.
chat GPT to, yeah.
No,
So it's
no,
too
no.
much in detail.
No. That's perfect actually, because this also will show us how you are going to how we have to decide what parts go where. We don't ever write the recipes the way we think of recipes in recipe books. All recipes in illustrated books are written according to whatever is going to be suitable for the illustration. So don't worry about it.
I just wrote it in this diary when you told me, but then
Okay.
you won't understand my handwriting. That's why I had to write it in a fine way.
Okay, that was very fast, huh? But that is
Yeah.
good. Well done. Okay, so let's see. We have a list of ingredients. There are two sets of ingredients. There's a curry paste, and there are other ingredients like that. So we've got the fish slices, we've got coconut, chili, cloves, pepper, coriander seeds, and tamarind paste. So that's seven ingredients there. Then another lot for probably frying. There's oil, onion, turmeric, red chili powder, and salt. So within between these, about 12 ingredients is what we probably will need. Is that right? To make the curry. So that's it. That is how the ingredients have to be counted. Um, so the processes are very simple. All the steps that you have written can be clubbed together to make just simple sentences. Step one and two can be just in one statement. Then we have the remaining ingredients just go in a blender and you just make a fine paste out of that. Saute the paste for a little while, add salt, bring to boil, and once the curry boils, you put fish in it. It couldn't get simpler. It sounds really, really nice. Okay, now this happens all the time. Right in the end, there is a note that says, before cooking, marinate the kingfish slices. So, this is something that often happens when we are writing recipes from memory. And if you start writing in a book, then you'll say, oh, I forgot the marinade. So, then you will put that in. So, good example of how you should read recipe. Read the whole thing before you start illustrating. A lot of times it's happened to me. I have started illustrating and then suddenly I've forgotten a step. And of course, when cooking, it's happened a lot of times. When illustrating, I can quickly put in a note somewhere and correct it, but it can be a bit of a bother. So I think the way we look at this recipe is that we have these following steps. First, um, we have to marinate the fish, make the paste, and then we have to put it in the pan in a sequence, and it's done. That's about it. That's how I would like to simplify it. So let's try and make these illustrations. We'll make the illustrations of the ingredients separately, literally like a list. Then we will make some illustrations of the processes like a list, and then we will see how to compose the illustrations together. Okay, so this is where my illustration is going to come. So I'm going to make the sketch behind the paper itself. Most of my the illustrations from all the books go into a file. So I try to make all the rough sketches behind the fair sketch, because if I make it on facing pages, I can't guarantee that it's the same topic and it'll go into the same file. Okay, so here we go. Let's put the recipes in place. Now, for when we have to make a list of the ingredients, we do not just write it, we'd also draw the ingredients. I'm making them really tiny. So, kingfish can be drawn like that. You make an almond shape. This is the size I'm making. I'm going to go a little closer so you can see the illustrations better. In this, we can now put a second layer at the bottom and join with straight lines. And on one side, we can make a hollow and give a thickness to that as well. And try writing the lettering also very carefully, because this will give us warm-up practice for the lettering. Now coconuts are drawn like this. Mark a U shape like that with not, don't make straight lines, don't join the two curves together. And on the farther side you can make a curve that's concave, on caving towards the, I guess, the hairy side of the coconut. Give that a thickness as well, and then draw these fibers coming from the other side. It's as simple as that. And we'll do a little bit of shading on the inside of the coconut so that it looks more 3D. And of course, you will end all these fibers in a little protrusion in the bottom. Now the recipe calls for grated coconut. But if we draw grated coconut, it's going to look like a pile of something like this. So if you think of how things get grated, you will notice that they come out in slivers. So you make a mound of um, you make the shape of a mound, and within that just make a few crescent shapes that look like shavings. So you can draw a coconut next to these shavings and say grated coconut. Without a picture of the coconut, this can be anything. Next to that, below that, we can draw the chilies. So dry red chili look like this. You have crooked lines in two different directions, almost parallel to each other, ending in a round shape on one side and ending with a cap and stem on the other. We can draw a couple of these, and usually they bend in one direction. So even when we are keeping them in a jar or you find them in the package, often they are kept along the side that they are bending in. Garlic cloves are simple to make. You just make a curved line and then round off one edge and make a longer curve on the other side. And if you want to, you can make a few lines like that on one side so that you can show some thickness. garlic cloves. Black peppercorns are very simple to make. You make a circle but with a very wobbly line, and when you're shading it, you shade it also fairly wobbly. You keep a little bit of a highlight on one side because dried peppercorns sometimes have uh, some kind of a highlight. The sizes of the peppercorns usually are identical, and they do have a shadow towards one side. Coriander seeds are really fun to draw. You draw them like tiny rounded ovals like this, and then within that you draw maybe two lines for the ridges that they have. Our spices have got very nice shapes and textures, by the way. Now again over here, if you want to show them as a heap, you can make a few of these on different sides to make it look like a heap, and then imagine some silhouette, or sorry, imagine how that heap will look if you were to draw more of these and just draw a silhouette shape around it. Within this, now if you want to add more coriander seeds, that's up to you, but with each of them keep changing the direction of the oval. And now finally tamarind paste here. Tamarind also looks a little like chili, but it has a, a front and back side. So I'm making the shape look like the chili, but I'm not ending it in a tip like this. And this can be shaded dark. And you can draw another one from the other side, which will be white in the middle. So tamarind has got segments within itself where the tamarind seed must have rested. So you'll see that the inside has got part of the pith around the seed, and part sometimes a little bit of it also can be seen along the edge. So that's how you can make tamarind. Of course, much of this will be more obvious once you see the text, and you can always put a little bit of shading even on the pith so that it looks distinct. Now, since we are not using real full tamarind, it is in a paste. You can make a bowl like this. You make the bottom part first and then make the top and leave a gap at the ends, and then make just a dark shape inside. Now we've made enough liquids to, I don't know, have we made enough liquids in this class? We may have, yeah. So we've done all that jam and things. So you know that we can't get away without making a highlight somewhere. So although this is a dark liquid, you should put a little bit of a highlight in this kind of a crescent shape and then shade the rest. All right. Now the next bit is the oil, onion, turmeric, chili powder, and salt. And these things can be difficult to make because they're just mounds of something or the other. So, turmeric, red chili, and salt can be made as bottles. So, you just make three sets of parallel lines like this. Keep the distance between them the same. And on the top, we will give them the shape of those old spice bottles. The opening of the bottle will remain the same, but on the bottle itself, remember we have these bottles which are yellow on top and white at the bottom. I really like those bottles. So you make these bottles identical because these
Burmese.
Barnies, yeah. So these three ingredients are usually commonly used in most Indian recipes. So you can always um, put some letter, red chili, turmeric, and salt. And you can use the same graphic on all Indian recipe illustrations. You can, of course, write this down as red chili powder, turmeric powder, and salt. Now, the same thing will go for oil as well. So, even with oil, we have all sorts of containers. Use a container that speaks oil. I generally use a bottle, but in most Indian homes, you have something like this with a dhakkan. Not most, I would say many. So you can use something like this. And they often have a hooked spoon, so that makes it look more like oil. If you have a bottle can be made the same way as we made the salt and turmeric, but you can make the parallel lines first, then round the tops and the bottoms. And if you want, you can also put a very nice oil dispenser like this and write oil.
Ma'am, we have to draw both the oil.
Yeah, just draw both because you can choose
Okay.
one or the other. Because, I mean, this is all, it's a very personal thing. You can choose whichever one you think suits the illustration. And the onion is very easy. Have we made an onion in the past? Before the burger?
Yes, we did.
Oh,
We did. We did.
we have sketched the onion. Yes, great. So this is where the making the onion part is going to help. So onions are just an oval with a shoot at one end and roots at the other. With curved lines like that, make a highlight and shade around it. It's a very simple illustration. Now, if you want to show a chopped onion, then the best thing is again to make a very um, staggered line like that, which has more straight edges than round edges. So this is the difference between chopped onions and shredded coconut. Chopped onions will have more rectangular, square like shapes, much more angular. But the strategy is the same. You just draw some of these shapes in some places, usually all bulked up together, and the rest can just be in shadow, maybe a few made in the backdrop. That's good enough. And sometimes you can also put a knife to indicate that you have chopped it finely. All right, now these are all our ingredients. They're easy enough to make, not a problem there. And we have the reference image to know how our final illustration is going to look. So now let's work out some compositions. Suppose we were to make the entire recipe, and in this case, let's just imagine that this is going to be illustrated in a book, an A5 size book. So you have two sides to it. We may not be we may not be making it just on this whole page like that, but maybe using it as two leaves. So, how about what if we make the finished illustration on the right? So, you have a banana leaf like that, you have a mound of rice, you have some fish there, you have some fried fish here. Now, why do we make the fried fish, the lemon, the chutney, and everything? Is because by itself the curry is not really going to look good. It's just going to look like, again, a mound of something over which we have a yellow something. That's the very reason why we want to look for a picture with banana leaf. You can make the full page as an illustration, or you can use the page to write your title as well. So you make this and you write the title. What would we call it? Is this just kingfish curry? Or you can write surmai also.
Yeah, surmai or kingfish.
Okay, so suppose we just write surmai. It's fewer letters, and also I think it gives it more authenticity calling it surmai curry than kingfish, in my opinion. That leaves one side to write the recipe. Now you can choose to illustrate the method as well, or you can just write text. In the event that you're writing just text, you can break the text up into several text blocks. You can write the ingredients on one side and then write the recipe on the other. And just to make it fun, you can add a few more illustrations over here, which may have nothing to do with this. Maybe you can paint the fish or whatever, so that the whole spread looks interesting. Remember, this entire thing must look cohesive. You can't just focus on the illustration and then write the recipe in your regular handwriting. That is not what we want. It needs to look like one thing together. I have made a fish curry recipe of my own, but I don't want to show you before. I'll show it to you later. So, this is one option. The second option is to illustrate everything. So, you don't want to write text. So, how about making our, let's draw the line but maybe ignore it and make our fish curry over here. And maybe not, don't make the fried fish, maybe some lemon, maybe some onion. This is going to be our recipe, and everything else can be drawn over here. So we can show our recipe go in an order like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and finally it's ready. So what are the first things to do? We can just draw our ingredients first. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And what do you do with that? You can blend. So you make the picture of a blender with a button. But remember, for things like these, don't bother with drawing wires. I find wires rather boring and they just create clutter. So don't be in a rush to plug it in. It doesn't matter, it's just an illustration. So you can draw the ingredients that are going into the blender over here, which means that the fish can be marinated in the salt, pepper, salt, haldi, and turmeric. And haldi and turmeric is the same thing. Red chili powder. So all you need to do is say marinate, blend, and then draw a nice spot. And you can say in very brief lines what to do. Saute the onions, put in the paste, let it fry, put in the fish, let it fry, serve with rice. Right? So you really don't need to write too much text. And in this, it's very obvious what this is, but we can also write Surmai Curry like this, maybe right in the middle of the book. So this is a proper illustrated recipe. This one relies a bit on text and can be a combination of a regular computer made text on the left and an illustration on the right. This one, there is no artificial layout, everything will be done by hand. We can make many more options, but I would like to stop here and ask which of these two you would like to make, and then we can make those. One or two. There are three of you, so we'll definitely get a vote on this. Okay, let me give you a minute. I need to go get some water for myself. Try to toss a coin to decide if you are undecided. And no matter what the coin decides, you will be hoping for one or the other illustration. That will be the one that you really want. So then that coin toss won't matter. Just give me a minute, I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. What's the decision?
We have two votes, both in different directions.
Sorry?
Actually, we have two votes.
Okay.
Both are for different ones.
So
They're in the chat.
one
One
vote
is one.
each.
Yeah, one for each.
Okay. So who's the person who hasn't voted?
Kirti?
Kirti.
Kirti.
Yeah,
Kirti
I
has.
had gone to bring water. What you guys decided?
No, they've got one vote each. So what, which is, where does yours is the deciding vote?
Deciding what, and you're the author of the recipe as well. So,
Uh, I think I would like to go with the first because that spread I think will look good
This
on the
one?
right side. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay, let's go with the first one. Okay, so I I will advise against drawing a line or anything over here. We are just going to imagine these as two separate pages, and we will make the illustration as if there is no separation of pages over here. Maybe a little bit of the banana leaf might go there, it doesn't really matter. And then the text can be written in two blocks over here. No matter what happens, for the text part, don't make your text very close to the perforated edge. So we will draw a line at least maybe one finger distance away, about so much, because that is the kind of space that you need for text to be easy to read. We can make a frame like this that's about the size of the width of my palm, in which we can fit two columns. When making text, we should remember that text is based on often how magazine or newspaper layouts are made. So when we make columns, we have to think of the distance between the two columns. And let's earmark that space even before we start, so we know how much space we have for the illustration. The ingredients really don't need too much of width, so I would advise to keep a smaller space horizontally. For the column can be a little narrower, in other words, and for the body text, it can be a little bigger. Having said that, there isn't too much information for the method. So we may not even consume this entire space, but we can keep more space because we want to write sentences here. One way to make your illustration more fun is to write a personal story about the illustration also. So if Kirti, if this is your favorite recipe, maybe you've got some story about where you got the recipe from, what occasions you've made it, how anything else related to that, then that becomes a part of this text as well. You may write it either at the bottom or at the top. Everything can fit within this block. Now, once we know that this is the amount of text we want, and that is the layout that we're doing, you don't want stray text running all over the place. We want to fit it within the blocks for it to look good. And we can start making the illustration of the recipe now. So let's look at the pictures that we have. This is a very nice illustration. Few elements we can, because we are not making too many illustrations for the ingredients, we can easily make all of these. The whole distribution of the pickle, the onion and chili on the top, the fish in the front looks a little artificial to me. And making a horizontal line, I don't know whether that works, because I know at meal times that is how it will be laid out in front of you. But horizontal lines and compositions of illustrations don't really look good. So we can draw it at an angle. The rest, I'm just going to show you how to draw within the proportions of the banana leaf that we see over here. Banana leaves are of different sizes. So if you land up making a small, a big banana leaf, it won't really matter. But within the comparative sizes of the fried fish, the rice, pickle, onion, all of those sizes need to look like they make sense together. So Here's how we'll do it. I would like to focus on the lower half for the illustration, but I won't start at the bottom. I'll start somewhere over here where I will mark a line for the center of the banana leaf. The banana leaf is the only thing that is going to shift. Everything else we will draw as we see it. So we have a mound of rice, which you will make like we see in the book. And on the top center almost, there is a curry. Now study the size and see if this is going to be sufficient. If you feel that you want more, you can increase the size at this stage itself, and we can still work with this. Now, compared to the size of the rice, what was the size of the fried fish? Keep the same orientation of the fish, and you'll see that it's a sideways or a foreshortened almond shape, which means that the top line of the top curve is horizontalish on the right, and then it comes downward like this. And then the bottom is exactly opposite. It almost runs horizontal and then rounds up and goes and joins the top like this. If you try to look at it sideways, you'll notice that it's not a perfect almond shape. It's very important to make the shape like this so that it looks more authentic at the angle that we have to draw it. Then we'll draw the thick line around it. That is going to be the skin. We have a foreshortened diamond shape in the center, which will be the bone, and a diagonal line running through all the four sides. Now, to make it look more authentically like a fried surmai, you can always make that hole with also a thickness on the inside. Don't make the lemon on top, make the lemon on the side. And make it like a lemon wedge. Don't distribute it in different places. One wedge is usually enough. Now, as far as the pickle is concerned, if we draw it on the left, it might just intrude into the text space. So avoid drawing it there. Let's make the banana leaf a wobbly line on that side and a little edge on the left and then a wobbly line towards the front as well. Depending upon how much space you have, you can end the leaf over here. Now this looks like the top end of the banana leaf. It's narrowing on one end, which means that it should be reasonably wide to accommodate all our food on the right side. So the distance from the center line to the edges should be more or less equal. The first line I made it look as if the right side is very thin. That won't look right. But if that were my final line, if that is the only thing I can accommodate, then I would have to change the center of my banana leaf from there to here so that these two sides can look identical, close to identical in size, the two sides of the banana leaf. So check if you're getting that or make the adjustments. Now we can draw some onions. These onions are not really looking that good, so we can draw imaginary onions. One of the onions is fine. One is looking very odd. And next to that, we can also draw the pickle. Now look at the pickle and look at the shape that the whole pickle makes. You see two prominent parts of the pickle. The rest are just slivers and color. So that's how you make it. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to make this illustration in pen and watercolor. We haven't used pen in any of our illustrations so far, but using a pen to make the few basic structural lines helps to then paint with much more conviction, and also automatically creates a very nice graphic look to your illustration. That's another way of making illustrations. Do all of you have a micron pen? Okay, good. In case you don't have a micron pen, you can just use a dark pencil line to make the lines. Okay, are you able to see my pencil sketch? Yeah? Okay, good. Right, so let's start off with the fried fish. I like that there is a uh, some. No, should we put that kadi patta leaf? Maybe not. So I'm using a point 0.5, I think this is a point 0.5. This is a very thick line, not too delicate. So my line is going to look quite dark, but I'm not pressing the brush too much, pen too much, and I'm also not making the line very firm. I keep breaking it so that it looks a little softer, though it's a thick line. All the stuff that we are drawing is fairly organic, so we don't want very straight lines, and we don't necessarily need lines that connect everywhere precisely. The less they connect, the better, more realistic, fun, loose our illustration will look. The lemon wedge also can be shown very gently. All of this is going to be colored afterwards, so don't worry about whether or not that's going to be visible. Of course, it's going to be visible. Now, to draw the curry and rice, I want to first show you in pencil how we're going to do it. So, there is a piece of fish in the curry which we will mark out with a broken line like this. The curry, although it is on the rice, you'll see that the curry doesn't spread in this form. It doesn't have the edges are not clean. So how are the edges in that case? At the point where we have marked the edge of the curry, we have to draw the rice. And rice can be drawn like this. You just make two sides of the grain of rice. You make a curved shape like that, and in some places you make it stand like that. You can draw a shape of a grain of rice in a few places, but if we are going to draw all the grains of rices, it's going to look horrible. Forget that, it's going to take forever. And you also change the direction of the line. Anything like rice, grains that heap up one on top of the other, you will only see the full shape of a few of those grains in a few places where there are shadows. So you can identify a section where you feel that you want to make some shadowy looking space, and there you can make more lines for the rice. And for the rest, you have to imagine that shape and only make the silhouettes. It's a little tougher than it seems, huh? But it's not as impossible as you imagine before you start drawing. So draw it carefully. You won't be necessarily finishing this fast. So don't be in a rush. In some places, you will also encounter a few stray grains of rice that have fallen away from the big mound. Do draw them. And now, at the top of the mound, you will definitely see only the shape of the rice. Falling like this. So, the boundary of the curry and the boundary of the rest of the rice will be an a wobbly, imperfect line like that. Now, my curry is sitting so perfectly in a circle on top, this is looking very unnatural. So, I'm going to change that and let it flow down a little bit. And as far as the fish is concerned, we will make a few lines like that on top, which would indicate some of the spices and maybe a few grains of rice just peeping out of the curry from the top, just in silhouette. Once you're comfortable with this, if you've made a few lines and you're confident, then we can go ahead and make this in pen. When it comes to making the edge of the fish in the curry on top of the rice, don't make the whole edge because that will look very, very artificial. So you want to make a broken line and maybe a few strands of some spices running across so that it does not attract too much attention but looks like part of a bigger composition. Now, at this point, if you are the types whose hand shakes or wobbles when you're making lines, you are in luck because cooked rice often has a very wobbly looking texture. Are you getting it? Yeah? Okay. Now, after you have made most of this, in a few places you can just draw a few strands, loose strands like that. Not everywhere, but don't distribute this everywhere. Now, when you're making those grains of rice, just check that your grains are about the same size, huh? So wherever you mark these extra lines, these curves, that is going to be again a darker area. But think of these curves being some parts of a grain of rice, not just random. You need to visualize this to make it look good. All right, next, pickle. If you can see the lines on the pickle, just make the lines that you can see. Don't worry about whether a particular uh, item is a carrot or a mango or whatever. If you see a rounded shape, just draw a rounded shape. If you see a curved shape, draw a curved shape. The whole idea of items like pickles and jams is that they are mashed up and we may not be able to see what's happening inside it. So you just draw a few things. We're just going to put some dark colors and be done with it. Even for the onion, draw loose lines like this. For the onion that's on its side, first draw the roots and then complete the shape. And do we need a chili? I think we don't need a chili because that will compete with the green of the banana leaf. Okay, now let's draw the banana leaf itself. Check again that you have equal leaf on opposite sides of the center. Now the structure of the banana leaf is quite interesting. You can draw one side from the center like this and give it some kind of a wave. And join it in a wobbly line. Now when you're making this also, you can tear it just a little bit, maybe in one place. You can tear it here, you can tear it here, wherever you want. Now for the other side, you don't join it from the end. You should ideally make a round shape like that because there is a dent in the banana leaf. It's such a subtle line, but in the illustration, it shows so much more maturity with very little effort on our part. Here again, we can draw one line like this, a little tear, not the same size, and make an infirm line to mark the center of the banana leaf. And a line goes through. And that's it. Okay, now we can erase all the lines. So one tip on erasing, always knead your eraser. The flexible eraser needs to be worked. So the outside edges need to go inside, and the soft inside of the eraser needs to come outside so that it can pick up graphite better. We need that stickiness to pick up graphite. And the best way to get rid of the lines in an illustration like this is to just roll the eraser on your illustration like a rolling pin. So you don't do a back and forth movement. That way the surface of the paper is not abrased too much. Okay, do you need a minute to finish the illustration? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Okay, so I'm just stepping away. I'll be back in about a minute. All right, so now we can start the painting bit. And again, before painting, if you think you want a backdrop for this, this is the time to paint the backdrop. Backdrop should not be painted as an afterthought. And then, with that in mind, also you should remember, if you're putting some text, what color the text is going to be, and whether that too needs the backdrop. So today we are going to make a backdrop because that's something that everyone wants to do, and they do it afterwards and they make a complete mess of the backdrop. So I'm going to show you how to make it. Backdrops don't have to be extended over the entire page, and they don't necessarily have to be limited only around the illustration. So we are going to make a backdrop that is going to be a flow of color that is going to come behind our banana leaf and go into the text part of the illustration as well. You want to get rid of some of the guidelines here, because once the paint comes on top of lines, they sometimes get embedded and then you can't erase them. So we are going to make a flow like this in maybe a bland brownish shade like this, or pretty much like the backdrop on which the banana leaf has been placed. So this will look like maybe the floor, but not a excuse me, not a very dark floor. Now I have a whole range of browns and reds over here, which are light red, burnt umber, all sorts of colors here. And since we are going to make a very lighter shade, I'm going to make it largely a reddish yellow ochre shade. So I have yellow ochre, burnt sienna, and a little bit of burnt umber added over there. This is burnt umber. Since it's going to be a wash, you just need to make sure that it's got flow and you have enough volume to make that wash. Whenever you're painting a wash, resist painting back and forth like this. That is not how we paint with watercolor. That is definitely how you can paint on a wall. Back and forth, like an oil painting maybe, or even acrylic paint sometimes. So it's fine. There's a place for all sorts of painting styles. So I want you to observe how I'm painting, what direction and what manner my brush flows. I visualize a space coming from the edge of my page around the banana leaf like this, maybe even going through to the bottom and then another line coming through from here. So it's going to be like a wave, maybe from here. And I wouldn't know whether it's going to look good unless I do it. Okay, so here we go. I'm starting my wave on the right edge, but I'm turning my book around, and I may also hold it up so that I get gravity to pull my color down. So notice how I'm not going backward. I'm creating a shape. I'm just pulling my color down and staining the paper. That's it. Now this stain should be uniform throughout. So I decide how much paint I want to bring in at what point. This seems to be sufficient. I don't want it to go outside of the page. So I'm just going to manipulate it so that it can finish its work over here. And that's it. Don't go and correct anything. Don't go and fill up too much for no reason. And wait for it to finish its job. Okay, I think we can pull some out from here. Use a big fat brush, tilt the book, and let that color flow. Keep adding some water to your pigment. Now suppose you run out of pigment and the color is becoming a little lighter like this. I'm in fact making it lighter deliberately so that it creates a nice vignette as it disappears into the foreground on the left. There are a few white gaps here, but I'm not going to bother filling it. There are lots of things happening. My brush went a little dry on the top here, but that's it. I'm not going to fiddle with it. Now, while this is drying, we can attempt to fill up maybe the curry or put a layer of color on the onions. So many of these are going to be a slightly warm yellowish color. So you can take a small, maybe a number 4 or number 6 size brush and give everything a light wash in a mix of gamboge, yellow ochre, maybe even a little bit of orange. But see, when I mention these colors, they don't all mix up into one puddle and then we apply that one puddle. So say we want to put this on the pickle. Just a few strands of color here or there are fine. We have to leave some highlights. The onion is a crimson red. So if you want, you can just put a very watery wash of yellow ochre to give the crimson some warmth as a second layer. And all this while we wait for the wash to dry. Then the same color again for the curry, but this time I'm also throwing in a little bit of orange. And there is a highlight on the right, so especially for the fish. So I'm not painting over there. And the curry The color of the curry is almost like a yellow ochre mixed with orange. In some places, you might have a little bit of scarlet. To keep the rice pristine, obviously avoid painting on the rice, but if a few flecks of your curry go into the rice, it might also look more natural. Some of the grains of rice that are close to the puddle of the curry are peeping out. Some of them may have a highlight on them, some of them might not. Now, if you have a problem painting very close to the edge, you can use a big fat brush or a medium fat brush to paint the larger sections and then just drag that color into the crevices so you have control. Do remember to keep a few parts unpainted. I'm saying that because I have forgotten to do that. And now this can take its time to dry. While we swiftly move on to the fried fish. For the fried fish, we use exactly the same colors, and we'll come back into this with a redder color afterwards. Since the objects are all organic, your colors also should be varied. You can't have one flat color on any of these. You can also,
Aditi, what are the colors for this fish and the curry?
it's a yellow ochre mixed with orange and a little bit of gamboge and a little bit of scarlet, but in a few places. So, see, this is what I do. I have my yellow ochre here. I'll take some orange and then I'll dip into the two separately so that in my brush I have both colors and then I will paint. So at some places I will drop in a little excess yellow ochre and some places a little orange will go and sit. So I don't know what will happen where. If you
Okay.
just make one shade, then the whole thing will just look like an dull orange color, which is what we want to avoid. The same color is also in the pickle, in some places. Now we can put a lemon yellow, a very light lemon yellow on the lemon. Later on, we'll come back and make this deeper. Now, the onion is not just a crimson color, it is a crimson mixed a little bit with burnt sienna. So the crimson is still visible, but it's if you use a bright crimson, it will look too much like a Barbie onion. So you don't want it to look like a Barbie onion. So add a little brown shade to it, and then that would be fine. Okay, now the reason I'm moving at a particular speed is because I do not want you guys to overpaint in the places that we have painted so far. This is layer one, and we are going to come back with layer two. The first layers are a little wishy-washy. So even for the onion, even though this is the first layer, I am painting the stripes in its texture. And within that also, though it's layer 1, I will consciously keep some parts of it unpainted to mark the highlight. All right, is everyone on the onion? So this point, everything will look very flat. And this is usually the point where most people will panic and think, what is it? What's going wrong? Why isn't my picture looking good? And you tend to then start doing the same things, the same colors over and over again in the same places. So that's not how we go about this. So before we paint anything else, let's put a layer of green for the banana leaf. Now this green is also going to be a combination of colors. We will use, of course, sap green because it's the closest color to banana leaf. But we will also put in a little bit of yellow ochre to give it more depth. Now I have a little bit of blue on the side. So just because I happen to have it and I want to use that space to make enough medium, I'm incorporating the blue as well. You don't really need it, but if you want to make your color look like mine, then you can add cerulean blue to your green. Now painting this can be a little tricky because we have to paint it past a lot of these tiny indents. But we can use a very nice trick here. Banana leaves have their own segments. So you can literally break your painting up into segments. If you're not confident of painting the whole leaf in one shot, just break it into believable segments and paint one segment at a time. And that is such a relief for a beginner when you have to do washes of this nature over a large area. So it's not so that it becomes easy, but it becomes more efficient. You want all your entire green color to look well, um, no, you want your color to look uniform throughout. And in trying to paint all the entire leaf, you may miss that. But if you just take one segment at a time and focus on that and paint in this direction coming outward, you will be making those segments as you go as well. So I'm using two brushes, a fat brush for a larger area and a small thin brush for the outer edge. Even if there are a few overlaps, they will look like those same strands. Now, both the brushes must carry pigment. If one brush is dry, then it will soak up the existing pigment. See, this is so much more relaxed to paint than trying to finish a full wash. So you can take your time, keep loading the brush, and you're painting in the direction of the segments. So if for whatever reason your colors are not uniform, you get some light stripes, some dark stripes, they will reinforce the segments on the leaf. I have painted several banana leaves in several classes in the past, and this has been such a pain point because it's nearly impossible for everyone to paint through and through. But now you can just stop anywhere, like I've stopped over here. I can restart. As long as I continue in the same direction, it doesn't matter. Now, suppose some of your green goes outside the leaf. We are going to make a shadow there. Even if we weren't, if your leaf color has gone beyond the leaf, we will make a shadow then to cover it up. We have lots of tools to make your illustration look like everything that you did, even by mistake, was actually a deliberate action. And that is the advantage you have if you make your own illustrations without relying on the illustrations of another artist. Because this illustration is unique. This has never been made before by anybody. So there is nothing to compare it with. This used to be my strategy when I cooked for my daughters. I wasn't very fond of cooking as a young mother, and I had a tough time competing with my mom's cooking, who, like many moms, I don't know how they do it, they just manage to cook. I mean, they go inside the kitchen, turn their backs, and come out with amazing food. I unfortunately did not have that talent. So, my strategy with the girls was to make food that was tasty, that they enjoyed, and it was completely unique. So unique that sometimes they would tell me, "Why don't you make this so and so thing?" And I had no clue what I had made for them. So I would just invent recipes of my own accord, thinking about ingredients and give it to them. So being original is actually very advantageous because then nobody can compare you to anybody. All right, now you can see how I have got a lot of patches, a lot of lines in my painting, but it looks like a banana leaf without even trying to make that texture. So the second part can be done later, just so that we save some time. That,
Aditi,
yeah,
you have added cerulean blue little into sap green, right?
correct, yes.
Only these two colors. My shade looks very different than yours.
No, no, no. Also yellow ochre. Yellow ochre in
Okay.
the green. And then there was a little bit of cerulean blue. So,
Okay.
yeah, otherwise you'll get a blue-green shade. That'll look like a turquoise kind of banana leaf.
I haven't added yellow ochre. I just added those two.
No, and also the cerulean blue is very, very little, very little. So Now, let me just see if you're blending like this. Whenever you are blending colors, you take colors separately. Now this is my sap green. My yellow ochre doesn't go in the middle of my sap green. It goes on the side. And then somewhere in the middle, I start making the color. And then when I'm confident, I'll make a larger puddle of it. Till you're confident, don't mix everything in the middle of your color puddle. So suppose I'm mixing, and I don't like this, and I take the next color, I take some more yellow ochre. If I put it in the middle, it's like adding more and more salt to the recipe without knowing if that is the missing ingredient. Then I'll add more green. Then I'll add more yellow ochre. That's not how it should be. Now, suppose I want to add cerulean blue, I should just add a little bit to the side and check if that color is fine. If it looks like it's headed in the right direction, I can mix everything else.
So now on the left side, I have already painted with little bit of cerulean blue and sap green.
You
So
didn't
shall
test
I paint?
it? Did
Huh?
you not test the color before you painted?
Yeah, I thought it is different, but I didn't realize what is the third color which you have added.
Oh,
So
no, so never mind. So next time, first is even if you painted a little bit, correct the color and paint the rest in the corrected color. The one that is going to look a little bluish, we can always make it a little darker. We can add another color to sap green and make that darker so that we can cover that up. And secondly, trust your eyes. So when you make a color, you know how banana leaves look. So you can allow your brain to just dictate that part. If a color is not looking right to your eyes, maybe it is not right.
that green color which I made, it is looking exactly like the one which is in the picture. The
Which is not bad actually, which is not bad.
yeah, yeah. I will just send the picture. You can check later on.
Yes, yes, let me check. Yes. Okay, now I'm not painting the other side just to save time because it's already past 8. But now I want to show you how to go over the rest of the food. If you want, you can just observe this part and make it later on. So everything has got some colors missing or some colors that need more intensifying. I feel that the curry needs more yellow, so I'm adding a little gamboge to a few places. This is just pure gamboge I'm adding to a few places. My strategy is to always be a little discerning about where you add color. Don't just go and add color throughout the entire section. You must change something. Either you reduce the area or you make it in a different space. That way you start getting more depth. Now to the gamboge, I'm adding scarlet and this scarlet and burnt sienna. But again, I would advise don't get hung up on the names of the colors. You can see what color looks like what we are making, or what we have to put there. So usually in Indian curries, you will see a lot of yellow. The reddish tinge you get is not scarlet, it's usually either light red or burnt sienna. And the brownish shades are usually burnt umber. And if it's really dark brown, then you can add a cobalt blue to that brown. The reason why this 18 shade color kit works is because we can make most of these colors within just this color palette. You don't need anything more. If you want to make a dull red, you put a yellow ochre into that mix and you get a dull red or a reddish brown. The application is also very simple. Just make strokes. Don't actively paint. The fewer strokes you make with deeper and deeper color, the more uh, nuanced your picture will become. If you make very large strokes, if you start adding too many colors, it starts losing its essence. It starts just becoming too flat. So can you see from where I started to where I've come by just making a few strategic brush strokes, I am able to create some depth in the fish curry. This is still layer 2. I can do a third layer also if things seem a little flat. Now for the rice, compared to the fish curry and the banana leaf, the rice is looking flat because there's really nothing to it. So if you look at the rice in the picture, it's got a slightly rosy tinge. So I'm using this color, the same color that we used for our wash
Like
and pack.
the red rice, the boiled rice.
Yeah, it looks like boiled rice. So that we can use this color, which was yellow ochre and burnt sienna, I think. And to that, we can add maybe just a little bit of scarlet crimson. So see where I'm taking the color from this mix over here and giving the existing brown shade a slightly reddish high tinge. Okay, so this is again yellow ochre and burnt sienna, yellow ochre, burnt sienna, which was what we used for our wash in the back. And to that, I'm adding scarlet and crimson to give it a reddish tinge. Now, I'm painting that only in the deep sections like this. This is going to look very dark right now. It's going to look as if my rice is going to become pink. But it's not because there's very little pigment. And I want you to see how I'm making my brush strokes. So essentially, I am putting color in what I perceive are the dark spaces between the grains of rice. So I visualize this rice and I'm making in paint what we did earlier in ink. There is a lot of light coming from the right hand side, so we don't have too many edges visible on the right hand side, but it won't look like anything other than boiled rice because of everything else in the picture that is telling us that story. So wherever you have darker edges, Kirti, I'm just going to mute you for a bit, huh? Some sound
Yeah.
following. So wherever you find dark edges, you can go over and over, but in a smaller and smaller sections, so that it looks more and more deep. Even if you've made these few strands here, you can the color will start drying. So just a few lines in within that section in a smaller part is good enough. And at every point, whatever nice deep red color you get, keep adding that into the pickle in small sections. The pickle has a lot of red and orange, but it also has a lot of textured dark colors. Now for the fried fish, this is looking very bland. So I'm going to go ahead and put a second layer of gamboge. Now the mystery of why your first layers look bland is very easily explained and understood. The first layer has to make the white paper look interesting. So it's almost as if against a white screen, everything looks very bright. The moment you put a second or at least a color on it, it starts making more sense. The colors become denser because they've got a base layer that helps them to look more vibrant. There are some sections where in the fried fish it looks like there is a scarlet. So do put that scarlet. And the scarlet is going to sit on maybe an orange or a burnt umber, so it may not look like it's nature. Extend that out into the skin section as well. And in some places, just drop in a few dots in a sequence like that, so that it looks like those parts of the fish. If you see it and if you can make it, do it. Otherwise, just keep it the way it is. Towards the edges, we have to make some dark colors now. And all dark colors will come from merging a blue or a brown or a black together. So take any blue. I've taken cobalt blue, burnt umber. It's too watery. And I can add some scarlet to this also, so that it becomes even more deeper brown. And you can drop this along the edges while the paint is still wet. And this will give us the illusion of the dark fried edges. And some of it can also come on the inside. Now for the onions, we can put a second layer. Same thing is going to happen. I'm using the same color, now a little watery also, because I can just spread this over the first, without of course painting on the highlight. It's a very light shade which will give a lot of depth to the onion. Again, this color, the onion color also I'm going to put in the achar. A little bit of lemon yellow and gamboge for the lemon. Maybe even a little bit of green will do. And the same color can be used to make some lines within the lemon so that it looks like a lemon, but very few. Now here's the tricky bit. I know we are not really focusing on the fried fish part, but the skin of fried fish becomes very silvery. So how do you paint silvery skin? Look at the reference image. What do you see? You have an almost white patch along the side. So I'm using cobalt blue to make a very light application along the edge in parts. And in some places, I will make horizontal lines and cobalt blue, literally. No other color. This is a very wishy-washy cobalt blue. There are lots of lines, lots of patches. This will be our base layer. Use a very thin brush for this. And then the same cobalt blue will be used in the deep brown color that we used along the edges. And that will be deposited again in a few places along the edge, maybe in some kind of a patchy application in a few places. But not like a pattern. It can't look like a pattern. Now here's the thing with dark colors. Every time you make a dark color, look for where you can use it. There will be lots of places where you can add a dark color in a smaller segment. Because remember to always paint several layers, but with each layer paint something less or paint something else. Now there are some parts over here which you can make like this. If you can see it, then make it, otherwise don't bother. These are just those the segments of within the fish that I can see, but if you can't see it, then don't make them. You can just make a flat orange in a few places. That should do. Much of this is possible through really observation. Every time you see anything, notice the lines, notice what they are doing to the object, how they converge, not to memorize it, but just to let your eye notice certain things that you otherwise would not. There are deep shadows just on the foreground side of all of these parts of the fish, which are giving them depth, and then a few dark shapes which would probably be spice. The fish curry is not that red, so we don't bother with making anything red on the fish curry. The moment you paint the green leaf on the opposite side, this yellow will look even more vibrant. Right now, the leaf is looking rather pale because again the same thing has happened. It's been on white paper, but you can make a second layer with the same color and that will brighten things up. So that layer can be made in stripes, leaving a little gap in the middle. This is tedious work and you can fully curse me for this later on if you want. But if you do have the patience, I would urge you to spend some time making these lines. They don't have to be parallel and they're definitely not the same size. So it's not as stressful, but the effect you will get is unbeatable. Now they're also not all straight 100%, so there will be a wave on them. And in some cases, they may also be at a slight angle or bigger. And this will brighten up the whole picture completely. Now the last part, I know it's almost 8:30, but let me just give you the last part. This is my favorite bit, and I think everybody needs some help in this, which, as you may guess, is the lettering. So when you are doing some lettering on an illustration like that, there are several considerations. Size of the letters, kind of font you want to write, kind of script you want to write. Do you want to make it Devanagari? Do you want to keep it Latin? The color you're going to use, how big or prominent you're going to make the lettering. So at this point, I'd like to show you the recipe book that I'm making. And I abandoned this because the paper didn't suit me too much, but I did a fair bit in this. But if you are going to illustrate a recipe book, then work out a good style of lettering that you can maintain consistently. So this was a fish curry masala, I think, that I illustrated. And the text for my titles is fairly straightforward. This was another masala. I chose to draw a map. But as you can see, I've not written any more instructions than just these are the ingredients, not even the quantities. Then this was again a fish recipe with a lot of text, but you can see that all the recipes are tied together by same style of writing. A few things are changing here or there. We've got a banana leaf, and in this one, to make that rava look more like rava, I've used white pen and made some dots. I think that makes a big difference. Again over here, Goan curry. I chose to make a plate in which I've drawn all the ingredients and I've written what they are around the plate. So I can just say grind these into a smooth paste. That's it. Now this is another one. I have just written the ingredients and I'm not even bothered with the method because it's all fairly self-evident. And there are still more recipes to go which are not done. So I'm going to show you the same lettering style for this. We know where our text for the method is going to go. Okay, that's another thing. When you're writing that text, you have to leave a certain gap away from the leaf. You cannot have your text, ideally don't have your text go underneath the leaf. It won't look really nice. And then the title should ideally come at the same height as you are writing the text with. So this needs to be aligned. If you're going to start your text here, say ingredients and method, then your surmai should also start from the top. So to make the text and make it even throughout, look at the spacing you have on either side. Keep that similar. If you want, you can keep more space on the side so that in case it becomes a book later on, this lettering does not look too off. Now, the word Surmai has got 6 letters, so let's divide this into 6 parts. I've drawn this rectangle and I'm going to cut it into half first and then visually into 2 parts on either side. Oh, sorry, into 3 parts. I'm going to draw 2 lines on either side. This can be adjusted. We can make this a little longer if we want, so that the letters are longer. And now you can just write the letters, leaving ample space between them. Now the word Surmai has an M and an I, which kind of cancel each other out. But as soon as I put an M, my letters on the right will shift a little to the right. And the word curry can be written in running hand if you want. But this is not your school cursive hand. Make
I
sure
will
that
have
the letter. Sorry?
I leave.
Yes. I'll finish this. You can leave. Yeah, I'll share a picture at this stage after I finish the lettering. We'll be done in 2-3 minutes. Okay, see you. Bye. Okay, now we can make our line around the letters that we have drawn and try to keep it the same distance from the letter, or the entire stripe can be the same thickness throughout. That should look nice. The distance between the letters should also be more or less the same, but because this is hand illustrated, it is of course going to have a few anomalies. It's not going to look perfectly like a computerized font. So that's a good thing. I think as we go forward, that's going to be something that people are going to celebrate as authenticity. So you just need to keep the top and bottom parts in line. And if you feel that writing in cursive is not working for you, you can just write the word curry in the same form, but maybe center it like that, leaving enough space from both sides, and do the same thing, a double line along the on both sides of the letter. And you'll see that I'm not really writing the final letter where I'm writing my pencil letter. The pencil letter is giving me a general idea, but I write the letter in pen, the outlining that I'm doing it according to how I see the space should be distributed. This is going to look excellent once it finishes. And then the last part, there's always going to be more and more last parts, but this is for sure the last part. Shadows. We have done shadows, I think, in the past. So all of these things are going to need shadows. And this time round, instead of a blue colored shadow, we can in fact use black. So I'm going to put a black line here very boldly, but only on the left bottom, and don't make it exactly the same thickness throughout. In some places it will become thin, and this will start giving depth. You may put a little bit of shadow on the insides of the where the curry is also nothing on the curry, I would say, and towards the bottom like that of the rice grain. I still have to make the details of the banana leaf on this side, so I won't make too much of it. But as you finish everything, right in the end, make this black edge on the pickle, on the left of the onion, maybe on this side of the fish, on this side as an oval around the lemon, and also just below the leaf. That part I think I can do even now, because this will make it look rather dramatic. It'll make it stand out also. Only on one side of the tear, not both. And start the line from a little below, leaving that gap so that it looks like it's actually flopping up. I'll complete this later. Because it's black, it won't matter. Okay, that should do it.